Take a look at this graphic illustrating the global search engine market share. As you can see, Google dominates the space with nearly 90%, while its closest competitor, Bing, holds just 3.9%. In 2024, Google generated $198 billion from search-based advertising, accounting for more than half of its total $350 billion in revenue. But while dominating the market has made Google incredibly profitable, it has also sparked intense scrutiny. Many critics accuse the company of monopolizing the search engine space and shutting out competition. Google claims that its near-total dominance in the search engine market is a result of its superior quality. But what if it's not just about being the best? In August of 2024, a US judge ruled that Google holds an illegal monopoly over the internet search market and effectively blocks competitors from gaining market share. The case has now entered the remedy trial phase, where the court will decide what actions, if any, should be taken to correct Google's behavior. This phase could have huge consequences. Regulators are pushing for measures that might fundamentally change Google's business model. In other words, the threat of breaking up Google is now more real than ever. So, what exactly is the case against Google, and what is the US Department of Justice demanding? The DOJ's case against Google centers on what it calls Google's vicious cycle. Here's how it goes. Google pays billions to be the default search engine on practically every device. That default status brings more searches. More searches mean more data. More data means better results. Better results mean more money. More money means more defaults, and the cycle repeats. The DOJ argues that Google has been using this cycle to expand its business empire, stifle competitors, and hurt consumers. And to break the cycle, they are asking for three things. First, stop Google from making these prime placement deals. Google spends billions of dollars each year to make sure that it stays the default search engine across various devices. For instance, in 2023, the New York Times reported that it paid Apple $18 billion to make Google the default search engine in Safari, Apple's native browser. And it has similar deals with other device manufacturers like LG and Samsung, major US wireless carriers like Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T, and browser developers like Mozilla and Opera. And this is a problem, because studies have shown that many users stick with Google simply because they never explore other options. So when a browser sets Google as the default search engine, most users stick with it out of habit or an assumption that the alternatives are worse. This kicks off the vicious cycle which I mentioned earlier. So, making it illegal for Google to do these deals with other companies is of huge importance for the DOJ. Next, the DOJ wants Google to sell Chrome, its own browser. Chrome is the most popular browser in the world, with around 3.75 billion users worldwide, and Google is the default search engine in this browser. The DOJ argues that by owning both the browser and the search engine, Google can reinforce its dominance and collect richer data than any competitor. Google's argument is that Chrome only works as well as it does because it's deeply integrated with Google's broader ecosystem. Separating it, they say, would hurt users without leveling the playing field. Finally, the DOJ is also concerned about AI. When the US originally brought its case against Google, the focus was on, well, search. Back then, in 2020, the government's antitrust complaint against Google had few mentions of AI or AI chatbots. But nearly 5 years later, the focus has shifted to AI, underscoring just how quickly this emerging technology has expanded. The government worries that the company could use its products to strengthen its monopoly in online search and to use the data from its powerful search index to become the dominant player in AI. AI and search are connected like this. Search engine indices are essentially giant databases of pages and information on the web. Google has its own such index, which contains hundreds of billions of web pages and is over 100 million gigabytes, according to court documents. This is the data Google's search engine scans when responding to a user's query. AI developers can use these kinds of databases to build and train the models used to power chatbots. The DOJ argues that Google's Gemini pulls information from the company's search index, including citing search links and results, extending what they say is a self-serving cycle. So, Google's ability to monopolize the search market gives its user data at a huge scale, an advantage over other AI developers. To stop this, the government wants Google to license all of its search data to anybody who wants it, even if it's a competitor. And this is what Google is most concerned about. The company claims that this would essentially turn Google into a white label available to all of its competitors. In the long run, Google argues, competitors would be able to use Google's search index to build and train their own products, while Google is essentially forbidden from making the deals and investments required to keep winning. The DOJ's argument, on the other hand, is that Google has built itself a nearly insurmountable lead through its illegal actions, and so the only fair thing to do is help competitors catch up. The fate of Google's search business is now in the hands of the judge, who will decide whether these remedies need to be implemented. However, even if Google manages to escape this trial without any major structural changes, it's far from being in the clear. That's because the company recently lost another antitrust case in which another judge ruled that it had a monopoly over the advertising technology industry. In that case, the US is accusing Google of abusing its dominance in the digital advertising market, where it controls multiple layers of the ad tech stack. Essentially, Google operates on both the buy side and the sell side of the online ad marketplace, while also owning the largest ad exchange in the middle. This setup allows Google to run the auction, represent the buyers, and manage the platforms where the ads are shown all at once. The DOJ argues that this gives Google an unfair advantage, allowing it to manipulate ad auctions in ways that hurt both advertisers and publishers. While the trial for this case has not started yet, the government is likely to try and force Google to divest large parts of its ad business altogether. In conclusion, Google is facing massive antitrust battles, which might end up having massive effects across the tech space. What do you think? Should Google be broken up, or should it be allowed to continue its operations normally?